Listen to me carefully. Sometimes God will disturb your emotions to deliver your destiny. And while you're crying over who walked away, heaven is clapping. Because what you call a loss, God calls a release. Woman, the very sign you've been praying for might not come in thunder or fire. It may come in the silence between you and someone who used to feel close. That silence isn't empty, it's divine. Woman of purpose, when God starts moving you, He doesn't always send a map. He sends moments, subtle shifts, uneasy silences, change conversations, unanswered calls, and growing distances. But hear this, movement in the spirit will always disrupt comfort in the flesh. There is a sign, and it is not in the thunder, it's not in the shaking of the ground, it's in the detachment, the gradual loosening of emotional ties to what once felt necessary. That's not rejection, that's heaven preparing you. God never prunes what He doesn't plan to promote. And when He begins to move you forward, He'll start exposing who was attached to your journey, but not your destination. Some people came to your life to help you heal, not walk with you whole, when I'm mourning what heaven already removed. That uneasiness in your spirit isn't rebellion, it's revelation. God is revealing the weights, not the wings, the people who anchor you to who you were, not those who can carry who you're becoming. You're trying to take everybody with you, but not everybody can go with you. Not because they're bad, but because they don't belong to what's next. Destiny is not democratic. It doesn't vote on who qualifies. Purpose is a divine appointment. And when God books your next assignment, there are some names not included on the passenger list. Trying to keep them only delays your flight. And here is the deeper mystery. The moment you start feeling emotionally detached from what once affirmed you, that is often the evidence that God has matured you past needing their approval. Spiritual maturity always precedes relational clarity. What used to move your heart now doesn't stir you. What used to excite your spirit now irritates it. Why? Because you've grown, because you've evolved, because you've tasted divine purpose, and counterfeit connections can't satisfy you anymore. Let me say it to you plainly. Detachment is not bitterness. It's not arrogance. It's not a sign that you're losing love. It's a sign that you're finding alignment. And when God starts aligning you, He will strip away everything that mislabels you, drains you, or distracts you. Sometimes God removes the emotional crutch because you've been limping too long on the wrong leg. You're too anointed to beg for presence where there's no longer purpose. You're too called to chase conversations that no longer carry covenant. The detachment is divine. The distance is design. The disconnection is direction. And so, woman of destiny, the next time someone drifts, the next time the silence grows, the next time the call isn't returned or the support disappears, don't panic, don't chase, don't complain. Instead, pause and worship. Because God is moving you. And this right here, this one sign, reveals who was never meant to go with you. When God initiates a divine move in your life, separation becomes inevitable. He never transitions you into a new season without first confronting what must be left behind. This is not punishment, it's preparation. Every significant shift in destiny requires a pruning of attachments, associations, and alignments that no longer serve your future. God is intentional, and He will never allow your purpose to be polluted by people who are only assigned to your past. The uncomfortable truth is that many relationships are rooted in your history, not your destiny. They were relevant for who you were, not who you are becoming. When the hand of God begins to stir your atmosphere, there is always a shaking. It may feel like you're losing people, but in reality, you are being preserved. God is not taking people away to hurt you. He is removing what cannot hold the weight of your next level. Some relationships were a blessing in one season and a burden in the next. And if you don't release them voluntarily, divine purpose will force the separation. You cannot walk in divine elevation while clinging to human dependency. God will not allow his plans for your life to be derailed by your unwillingness to let go of what's familiar. This is the principle. Movement demands separation. God called Abraham out before he showed him the promise. He had to leave his country, his people, and his father's household. Why? Because what God was about to do in Abraham required a clean slate, untainted by the limitations of the old environment. In the same way, when God is moving you, he'll start cutting ties that seem important but are no longer aligned. Trust the separation. It's not the end of something, it's the evidence that something greater has already begun. There's a difference between connection and covenant. Just because someone is present in your life doesn't mean they were sent by God for your destiny. Many relationships are rooted in convenience, not calling, formed out of emotion, not purpose. They feel close, but they don't carry the weight of eternal assignment. You can be surrounded by people and still feel misaligned if your spirit knows they're not walking in covenant with your purpose. Covenant relationships don't just support you emotionally, they sharpen you spiritually. They are tied to your growth, your becoming, your obedience to God. Far too often, we confuse closeness with calling. Just because someone has been with you through a difficult season doesn't automatically mean they are meant to walk with you into your divine next. Some people comfort your wounds but can't carry your vision. They understand your pain but not your purpose. And when you start to rise, they feel left behind, not because you've changed, but because the relationship was never built for where you were going. God knows the difference between who helps you survive and who helps you thrive. When he begins to shift your life, he will reveal who was assigned to the storm and who is assigned to the promise. You'll begin to see the limits of emotional support when it's not anchored in spiritual alignment. A covenant friend will correct you in love, challenge you in truth, and still walk with you in grace. They don't compete with you, they cover you. This is why divine movement exposes human motives. When God breathes on your life, he reveals intentions that were once hidden. It becomes painfully clear who was attached to your comfort and who was attached to your calling. That distinction is not just necessary, it's sacred. There comes a moment in every woman's life when the emotional connection she once held with certain people, places, or patterns begins to dissolve, not because of offense or conflict, but because her spirit is shifting. What used to bring comfort now feels out of alignment. Conversations that once brought laughter now feel hollow. The things that used to energize her now drain her. This is not confusion, it's divine clarity unfolding. Emotional detachment is often the gentle indicator that God is awakening something deeper within her, and what no longer aligns with her spirit must be released to protect her next. When your spirit begins to outgrow your environment, detachment becomes necessary for survival. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're being awakened. The still small voice inside begins to whisper louder than the noise around you. And you find yourself withdrawing, not in rebellion, but in reverence. The connection is fading because the assignment is finished. What once felt like home now feels like a holding place. You're no longer fed by what once sustained you because God has introduced a new hunger, one that can't be filled by old sources. This detachment is not a flaw in your heart. It's a sign of growth in your spirit. It's a signal that your identity is catching up with your calling. You are shedding the old to make room for the new. And sometimes that shedding feels like emotional death, but it's actually spiritual rebirth. You don't need to explain it to everyone. They won't always understand. You are being pulled toward destiny. An emotional detachment is the soul's quiet agreement with God's movement. It's the evidence that your spirit has discerned something your emotions are just now beginning to understand. Purpose never negotiates with misalignment. When God sets his hand on your life and reveals the path he has ordained for you, he will not allow relationships to remain that pull you in a direction opposite of your destiny. Alignment is not optional in the realm of divine purpose. It is essential. You cannot walk in the fullness of what God has prepared while remaining yoked to people who do not carry the weight or wisdom for your next level. The journey of purpose is sacred, and it demands the company of those who are walking with the same reverence for what God is doing in you. God often allows tension to rise in relationships, not to break your heart, but to reveal what is out of sync. The friction is not random, it is revelatory. It shows you where values no longer match, where conversations no longer elevate, and where presence no longer brings peace. The longer you hold on to what is misaligned, the more delayed your progress becomes. God won't bless what you won't release if it threatens the integrity of your assignment. Misalignment in relationships doesn't just slow you down, it distracts your focus, drains your energy, and distorts your vision. When you are serious about destiny, you start to evaluate everything through the lens of alignment. Does this person feed your purpose or feed your insecurity? Do they challenge your growth or enable your complacency? God will not allow you to soar while still entertaining the weight of misaligned partnerships. What may seem like a necessary relationship could actually be a subtle hindrance. And so, out of mercy, he will start revealing the gap, not to punish you, but to protect you, because purpose cannot flourish where alignment is ignored. Peace is not a luxury in the journey of purpose, it is a compass. When God begins to shift your life, one of the first signs is the quiet departure of peace from places and people you once felt safe with. It doesn't come with thunder or dramatic events. It often begins subtly, a heaviness in conversations, an uneasiness in environments, a restlessness in your spirit that you can't explain. That's not anxiety, it's divine disruption. God uses the absence of peace to guide you away from what no longer carries his presence. When you lose peace in a relationship or space, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to justify staying. Pause and listen. The loss of peace is God's way of saying, this is no longer for you. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of alignment. You can have quiet chaos in your soul while everything around you looks calm. That's when discernment must speak louder than sight. You are not being called to what is convenient. You are being summoned to what is consecrated. There is a point in spiritual maturity where peace becomes more important than proximity. You no longer chase closeness with people who disturb your clarity. You don't apologize for walking away from environments that no longer match your growth. Peace is a signpost. When it leaves, don't ignore it. God may not always shout, but he will withdraw his peace when he wants you to move. That unease is holy. It is sacred disruption designed to reroute your focus and realign your steps. You don't have to understand it fully. You don't need all the answers. You just need to trust the loss of peace as heaven's signal that something in your atmosphere no longer belongs in your assignment. Letting go without bitterness is one of the highest signs of spiritual maturity. When you begin to understand who you are and what God has placed within you, you stop pleading for validation and start walking in quiet confidence. You no longer feel the need to explain your boundaries, justify your distance, or apologize for your evolution. There is a holy resolve that rises when you realize your purpose cannot afford to be held hostage by the approval of people who were never assigned to your destiny. Confidence in letting go doesn't mean you're hard-hearted. It means you're kingdom-minded. You understand that clinging to every connection is not loyalty. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of stepping into the unknown. But when God is moving you forward, he often invites you into isolation before elevation. In that sacred space, you learn to detach, not because you've stopped loving, but because you've started discerning. You've stopped begging people to see your worth, because heaven already stamped it. There comes a time when you realize that holding on to certain relationships is not strength, it's sabotage. And so you let go, not in anger, but in alignment. You walk away not to prove anything, but to protect everything God is birthing in you. You stop entertaining what drains your spirit, and you start guarding what fuels your purpose. Confidence in detachment is not a lack of love. It's the presence of wisdom. It's the understanding that everyone who starts with you is not called to finish with you. When you know who you are, you stop shrinking to fit places that insult your calling. You bless them, release them, and keep moving. Because destiny doesn't wait for explanations, it responds to obedience. Elevation does not just change your view, it reveals who can breathe at your new altitude. When God begins to elevate you, he exposes who was truly connected to your foundation and who was only holding on to your familiarity. Everyone can walk with you in the valley, but not everyone is equipped to climb with you to the mountain. And so, as God lifts you, he reveals compatibility not through confrontation, but through capacity. Some people simply don't have the grace to grow with you, and their inability to rise with you is not rejection, it's revelation. Elevation demands more faith, more obedience, more purity, more discernment. And with that increase comes a divine separation from people who are comfortable with your former version, but feel threatened or confused by your growth. Their silence, their distance, even their criticism is not always rooted in malice. Sometimes it's just proof they were not built to handle who you're becoming. The higher you go, the fewer voices you can carry. The summit is not crowded, it is sacred. You begin to notice that certain conversations no longer have depth. The connection that once felt full now feels forced. It's not pride, it's purpose, exposing what no longer fits. You are outgrowing what was never designed for your next. And God, in his mercy, allows this exposure not to shame you or them, but to release you both from false expectations. Don't misinterpret the disconnection. What seems like a loss is often God lifting a veil. He is showing you who can be trusted with your calling, who can celebrate your rising, and who can stand under the weight of your purpose. Compatibility at higher levels isn't about agreement. It's about alignment with the vision heaven has assigned to your life. Woman of purpose. You are not being pulled apart. You are being set apart. What feels like loss is actually alignment. What feels like loneliness is divine preparation. God is not just moving you forward. He is maturing you, refining you, and distinguishing you for something greater than where you've been. Stop mourning what God has removed and start praising him for what he's making room for. Emotional detachment is not a sign of weakness. It is evidence of spiritual strength. It means your spirit has discerned that peace is better than presence. Purpose is more valuable than proximity, and destiny must come before emotional dependency. You are not called to drag people into your future. You are called to walk boldly into it, knowing that those who are truly assigned to your next level will not need to be convinced. They will already be aligned. Let God do the pruning. Let him silence what no longer speaks to your spirit. Let him distance what no longer fuels your growth. And above all, trust this truth. If they can leave you, they were never meant to carry what's coming through you. This is not the end. This is the sign. God is moving you, and now you know exactly who's meant to go with you.